Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey toward publication. I am Jennifer Carl Tong, and just like last week, I write Christian historical romance.
Hi, I'm Christina Catane, and I write in multiple genres. I am currently writing a thriller of some sort.
Some sort.
I am Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
Welcome, ladies. How are you doing this morning?
Okay, I just want to start by saying, now look at me. I'm looking at myself with my V-neck and then these big things. I look like a heart. Like, don't you think it?
Plus there's red on them.
Love today. Anyway, so also really nice posture. Hi, everyone. Anyway, that's how I'm doing.
Are you caffeinated today, Jamie?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. Something's going on. It's cooler weather here in Florida, so maybe it's just making me feel extra, I don't know. You know how like the zoo animals get all ramped up when the weather's cooler and they just loaf around when the weather is hot? Maybe that's what's going on with me.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, you ever been to the zoo in like hot weather? The animals want nothing to do with it. You see zero animals when the weather is too hot or too cold. But in cool weather like this, they're so frisky. I kids love animals. So.
I used to go to the Alaska Zoo, so it probably was not an
The cheetahs are circling, like spinning and doing pirouettes all the time because it's Alaska and it's really cold.
They don't have cheetahs there. They're all Alaskan animals.
Oh, really? I was just going to ask you because, I mean, building a climate that would be, good for because now zoos try really hard to make the animal believe it's still in Africa or wherever. Not a lot of that probably able to happen in Alaska because you can't even give them like the amount of daylight they're used to having, much less, right? The climate. That's interesting.
And I'm guessing most of their money came from tourists. And if you're a tourist in Alaska, you want to see Alaskan animals.
Well, that's true.
That's a really good point.
Because if you live in Alaska, then the animals are in your backyard anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I should tell you about the encounter I had with a black bear in my backyard, but we don't have time for that.
Maybe later, because that sounds interesting. All right, we are in week 4 of NaNoWriMo of 2018, and it has been quite the ride. So before we go any further, we're going to do a segment that we always do at the beginning of every episode, which is our What's Up segment, where we check in with each other, see what's going on in our personal and our professional lives. And I'm going to start with you, Rhonda, just because you look ready.
I go last.
Oh.
Let's see. Well, there's been a lot of Thanksgiving going on and Christmas shopping and Christmas card making and that sort of thing. And then writing also. I am nowhere near my goal. I will not win this year, but I am winning in my heart because I've made some really good habits.
All right. We'll talk about that. Tell us, like, where are you? Like, let's be honest. Like,
I am about 30,000 words, just under, like maybe 29.
Yay!
So great.
Yeah, well, I know. I'm really ecstatic about that. And that's probably one of the reasons I'm not really worried about getting the 50,000. And besides, I already own Scrivener. So, I mean, really, that was my point for winning before. But the way that I've won, though, is that I have written every day. And I worked so hard on outlining and getting the base work done the way that I needed it to be done in the beginning, that I've had something to write I haven't really had, I haven't had perfect writing every day, but I haven't had one of those days where I don't know where the story's going and blah, and I'm just going to write something different,
It's a totally different game, isn't it? Like writer's block is kind of almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Because I can always move on to something else. Having every scene outlined, I can jump around in a way that I couldn't do that before.
Right. That's awesome.
Especially in the rough part of it.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. Yeah, the murky middle. I'm so excited for you, Rhonda, because we're buddies on Nano, and I've noticed that you haven't been updating, and so I was getting a little concerned. So you need to go on an update because you know why? Because they keep track of your lifetime numbers too, and that's kind of fun to see those numbers go up too. So even if you don't win, this is a good tip for those people that are listening. Even if you don't win, you need to go and keep track of your numbers because they keep track of them year after year after year. And it's kind of fun to see how you get better or do more or just how many words over the history of Nano you've done. So
yeah, that detail did escape me. So, but thank you.
Yeah.
And good for you for, just like you said, you've made some new habits. That's really awesome. And just before we move on, I would like to say that I do notice the cup that is on your shelf.
That was for you.
Rhonda put stuff on her shelves. I sometimes wonder, just trying to see if I noticed something's different. So I did see it.
That's awesome. All right, Tina, what's up with you?
Well, I'm about 3,000 words away from winning, less than 3,000 words.
Hey.
So I could easily do that today, or maybe I want to drag it out till tomorrow. I don't know yet. So I'm really happy because I had to take an entire weekend off of writing because my daughter begged me to go on a retreat with her. And I said, you realize it's November, right? And she's like, please, Mom. So I did that. And then, of course, Thanksgiving. And we have like a family tradition of going to Frankenmuth, Michigan, on the day after Thanksgiving, which was when they turn on all the Christmas lights and stuff. So that was like 2 days there. So that was 5 days that I didn't get a chance to write. So I was a little concerned, but I'm doing well. So I'm happy.
That's awesome.
Wow. Way to stick it out and get caught up. That's quite a bit to overcome, 5 days.
Yeah, I wrote 5,000 words in one day after all that was over.
Wow.
Wow.
So that's encouraging to somebody else too who's watching this, who might be like 5,000 words away or 5,000 words behind. It's doable. You can still do this. Yes, you may not see civilization for the next 2 days, but you can do this.
Civilization's overrated.
Says the Alaska person.
All right, Jamie, what about you? What's up?
Well, I finished my Nano novel, whatever. I won on the 15th, so I've not been doing my Nano. Well, I've been writing some other things, but I have written every day still. I've tried. So since as of yesterday or the day before, I've decided I'll write 1,000 words a day instead of 500. Which has become easier because I do have the daily writing habit and I've been sprinting with you guys. And for NaNoWriMo, it was 1667 or 1677 or whatever it was. But the bottom line was write as many words as I can while I had someone to sprint with me. So I got used to writing daily more, and it really stretched me to see what I was capable of doing. But that was blocking out the rest of the world and a little bit of abdication of other things. So I'm like, well, what can I write and not abdicate those other things that are also very important? And I think I can do 1,000 words a day now. And so that has been extremely manageable. And things are starting to settle into a really good rhythm here. And so everything is very positive.
And so when you say 1,000 words a day, you're talking Sunday through Saturday, right? You do 7 days a week?
7 days a week. I'm writing every day. Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at, you could do 30,000 words a month, every month. Consistent.
Yes. I mean, the goal, okay, I was not going to do NaNoWriMo this year. But the real goal that I have is to not need to do NaNoWriMo because I'm already writing 2,000 words a day. And it would just be, well, every month is a Nano month. It would be dreamy to me because I know if I can do 1,000, it's not even taking me an hour. Eventually, I should be able to get to a place where I could do 2,000 and it not be causing me to have to like live a whole different lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? But that is me. And I don't think anybody has to have those same goals.
Right. I think we've talked about enough times, multiple times, that everybody's writing journey is different.
Yeah.
Just the only thing that needs to be the same is get your butt in the seat.
Yes. And and if you're looking to publish, because, you know, we've also talked about who is our audience. We love writers who are hobbyists, but the goals we are working toward is to become published authors. So when we speak about trying to be more prolific and trying to meet deadlines, it's because we have a goal of being published. It may not be your goal. You may want to write for the creative outlet, or to have gifts to give to people, or to just leave behind something that people will have a piece of you when you're gone. All of those are also very valid reasons to write.
I absolutely agree.
What about you, Jen? What's up with you?
Well, similar to Tina, I got behind in a weekend. My husband, who has been out of state, was home all weekend, and he's very supportive of my writing career. But this past weekend was very kind of wanting to spend lots of time together, wanting to do things with the girls, and there wasn't any writing time, and I got several thousand words behind. So I've been kind of stressed out this week, but slowly but surely catching up with doing writing sprints with you ladies has helped a ton. And then yesterday I had a doctor's appointment, so I dropped my girls up at school, and before I went to the doctor's appointment, I went to a Big B Coffee and sat and got about 800 words in. And then my parents called and wanted to meet for lunch, and I love my parents, so of course I wanted to do that, even though I'm like stressed. So I went and met them for lunch, and they were late, so I got another 400 words in. So I was like feeling good because I was almost to the nano goal just for that day. Forget about what I had to catch up. And then I wasn't feeling well last night. I'm like, oh, I don't need this. I need to at least get to my nano goal. And so I took some medicine, and I started to feel better. I went outside for a bit in the cold air, and that actually really helped. And then I sat down and wrote, and before I knew it, I had written 5,000, hold on, 5,830 words yesterday. And
Wow.
yesterday I won Nano.
Yay!
I didn't mean to. Like, I really was like, no, I was going to wait until after this episode because I honestly wanted to be encouraging to the people that listen to this. I didn't want people to tune in and say, oh, look, they've all won Nano. I'm just never going to throw it in. Like, I wanted to show, like, no, like, we're here at the last minute trying to do it as well. But it just happened. And kind of like what Rhonda was saying, is because I had this outline, like I just knew where I could go, and I wasn't feeling parts of it. And I realized it's because I needed to write what happens at the end, so I knew how to build up to that. Like, there were certain events that I wasn't sure was going to happen until I wrote them. And so I was able to go kind of towards the end and write it. And now I'm going backwards, and it just worked out. And so this is my first year. I've won Camp Nano before, but I've never won Nano. And I'm just so excited to finally be here. So what a weight is off of me. Like you just don't understand. You don't realize it until you're done. And then you're like, oh, it feels so good to have this weight off of you. So yeah.
Well, and so I really appreciate, there's a little bit of muscling through the hard stuff there. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to be like me with a husband who travels and isn't asking of my time, and, children who are pretty self-directed with their learning and can just be given assignment. Like, I have a lot of time. We talked about this off the air. That is to myself. I mean, I'm blessed that way. I do have sacrifices because of that, of not having the time with my husband, but my schedule is pretty much what I make of it. That is not the case for you. That's not the case for many people who commit to this project. And in addition, you had like a death in the family that came in just at the beginning of things. I mean, you had some really serious need to push through and just do it because I said I was going to do it. So speak a little to that.
Yeah. This is my third Nano, and every year I started calling it the Nano curse, because the very first year I was all excited and set, and I was like right on track until about the 12th, when I went in for a minor surgery and they found cancer. So that kind of derailed that year. And then the next year I was on track, all the way doing great until the 8th, when someone very dear to me passed away. My uncle, who we hadn't, we're not expecting him to die, passed away. And that uprooted my life, because now my aunt needed things, that she couldn't get from anyone but me, and so I did not win that Nano. And so this year we did have another death in the family, and I told the ladies, I'm like, it's the Nano curse, but it clearly is not. But it is. It's like you get to a point where you just have to do it. And like Rhonda, she can look at it and say, I'm not going to win. Now, maybe some people at 30,000 today could say, I could pull out 2 10,000 word days. You know who you are as a writer or not. You know how much sleep you need to get and how much you don't. And but sometimes you don't. And so you look at your life and your circumstances, and you decide, am I going to push through and do this? Or is it better for me just to look at it and say, oh my gosh, I got 30,000 words in. That is awesome. So for me, it was, I was very frustrated after this weekend because I started to feel like I wasn't going to make it, because after my husband left again, then I had still to be mom, and I still have to take care of all of everyone else's lives and do all that and still fit all these extra words in. But God was just very good this week. He just provided the time, and my girls are just awesome. And the story came really easily this week. And so, yeah. And, I'm super happy with it. And you guys have no idea the self-control that I have, because at 10 o'clock last night, I wanted to blow your phones up with pictures, screenshots, and emojis and memes. You have no idea. GIFs, what self-control this girl right here has, because I wanted to just blow your phones up and tell you.
Wait a minute, 10 o'clock at night?
When she finished, she was up at 10 o'clock. I wonder what those
she was
last
up at 10 o'clock.
I know.
You have to tell us. Do they say?
I know. I should pull it up. Like,
you might want to reread it and make sure it's intelligible.
There was one part that I was like, and I'm like, no, it's fine. And so, like, no, I think it was pretty good words.
That's great. Well, I'm really glad that you managed to keep it a surprise. What a fun surprise today.
Yeah.
If this had happened on Tuesday, I would not have been able to wait till Thursday. So, and I was so worried you guys were actually going to go look at Nano, like go look and see your buddies and see how we were all doing. Or am I the only one that stalks you guys?
Yeah.
I only occasionally stalk.
Oh no, I do like every day to see if you guys have fun.
I'm too self-absorbed to look at anyone's but my own. So.
That's awesome. So, all right. So that was fun. I was just outside of my skin waiting to tell you guys that. Even this morning when we got on, the first thing I want to do is tell you, like, this has been a rough morning for me. So it is week 4. We've pretty much kind of covered that a little bit in our What's Up, but I thought it might be good for us to talk about. It is week 4. We're getting ready to wrap up. What are some things that we as writers can do to help push through that final last 2 days that we're in right now? And I also thought I should have brought this up earlier. I also thought it might be good for us to talk about self-care. Jamie made a comment to me 2 days ago that, because I was like, oh no, I'm just going to keep writing. She's like, you got to think about self-care too, John. You got to think about taking care of yourself, get up, move around. And she was right. When I stood up, I could hardly walk. I had been sitting for so long typing. And so anyway, the final push. You guys have any, ladies have any suggestions for those that are the final steps? All right, let's hear it.
Just continue on, because if this is your life and if you want to continue with the habits that you've already started, it's just 2 more days. You might want to write extra if you're that close to the goal, but don't think, oh, 2 more days, then I can be done writing like this or whatever.
Oh,
myself, it's 2 more days in my lifetime of writing.
Yes. Now talk about like the mentality of that too, Rhonda, because at what point did you decide, or not decide, but realize that you weren't going to win, but yet you kept writing? How did you, like, I guess, prepare for that or do that?
Well, let's see. I think it was around November 6th.
Stop. Stop it.
No. You know what? I went into it this year because I have won before. So that's done. Not a good story. And so this year I thought, do I want to win at all costs, or do I want to write a good 1,667 words a day that I'm happy with, and I want to continue with in my novel? Now, when you've read our postcast piece, and so that's mostly what it looks like. It's like step 7 in the snowflake method, pretty much. So everything that I've written every day isn't a finished, polished piece, but I started off on November 1st knowing that I wanted good habits and I wanted to be proud of what I wrote.
Yes.
And if I won or if I didn't win, that was my goal.
I think
awesome.
I think that's really interesting too. I had a conversation recently with another writer from our Nano group. You guys all know him, Matt, and that there are some people in our Nano group that will write hundreds of thousands of words, but they will admittedly tell you that it's garbage. Like they're just vomiting out words and getting it. Like, so basically they can type that fast. and that that's not what I want to do. He doesn't want to do that either, and I know that you ladies don't either. Yes, we want to get the words out because you want to get the story done, but I don't. I want to have a crafted story. I would rather be like you. I'd rather have 30,000 good words than 50,000 garbage that I have to go through and fix later. Right?
Yeah, because you read through that jumble later, and it's not even worth reading through it again to pick out the gems here and there. You know.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of work needs to be done.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm writing right now, but it would be a lot worse if I was just, vomiting out the words.
Yeah.
I think go ahead. No, Tina, go ahead.
For me, I started out with the mentality that this was just going to be for fun because, as everyone knows, you guys decided what I was going to write for me. and so it was just going to be this fun experiment, and it was going to be like a reprieve from or a little break from the serious writing, right? But as it got going, it became serious, and I started to really like the story, and I started to really think about domestic violence and what a serious subject that is, and what message I wanted to portray about that through the story. So it became something serious along the way, and I'm really excited about it.
I really like hearing both of you talk like this because, again, the focus of our podcast is a journey toward publication. And people do NaNoWriMo for many different reasons. And you do wonder, well, what is the point if you're someone who's, already a writer with writing habits? Why would Nano be for me? And I think the two of you saying the things that you're saying here, one, to help you better establish your habits, and two, to exercise maybe a part of your writing muscles that you've allowed to go dormant because you've been over here doing this other really hard thing. There's many ways that participating in NaNoWriMo can help you if you are publication minded. It isn't just for people who are new to writing and decide, oh, I want to write a novel, or, it's for those people too, but it doesn't mean that it's only for those people.
Right.
Jamie, do you have any advice for somebody that's on the final push?
Well, no, nothing any better. You girls gave excellent advice. I guess I would just say, do what you can. Why give up, I guess? So, the encouragement is like, why keep going? But I guess my counter to that would be like, why wouldn't you keep going? Why wouldn't you write more? I guess a lot of people maybe look and they didn't quote unquote win, and then somehow that discourages them and makes them give up. But I don't really understand that, because what other month of this year have you been such a writer? And why would you look at that as a bad thing because of an arbitrary number like 50,000 words?
And I think there's a huge difference between somebody who's writing during November and they're only going to write during November. Mm-hmm. Whereas we are going to continue to write after November. So I keep going, because who says you have to finish it in November? I'm going to hit 50,000 words and my story's not going to be done. I'm going to have to keep going. So
that's a good question. Jennifer, yeah, your story isn't done, correct?
It is not. I have the skeleton all there. I have 3 or 4 chapters I haven't even touched yet. So by the time I at least touch those chapters, I'm probably going to be closer to 60,000. But my novels are typically between 70 and 80,000, which means, as you can tell, there's a lot. And those are usually about 32 chapter novels, which is what this outline is for. So you can tell just by that there's a lot of chapters that need help. But I'm okay with that, because at least I've got something there, right? Like you can't edit an empty chapter. You can't edit an empty page. And so at least I have I will have a skeleton. So I'm going to continue writing today, hopefully today. Today's kind of a crazy day, as you guys know, but tomorrow and so on, because I want to get those other chapters finished so that I can actually put this one aside and come back and edit it later, because then it will be done. Like, how exciting that within a couple months I could have a whole nother complete novel done. Like, it just blows my mind. I'm super excited about it. What about yours, Jamie? Is yours finished?
No. Well, here's the thing. I'm kind of not sure. No, the ending is not written. That I know. Okay. But I really have to go and put everything in the place where it belongs because I just kept opening these other little tabs. You know, I'd be like, sprints with Tina on 11/10, you know,
oh yeah,
whatever writing prompt on whatever day. And so I have all these weird little chapter nuggets that are not where they belong. So I'm not really sure where my gaps are in the story or what I still need to flesh out before I can just put the end on it and have it be the end. But I'm very excited about kind of how close it is. It's really very close. I still have the traditional publisher thing whirling around in my head because of my experience of trying to pitch my 50,000 word novels way back once upon a time. And I still feel like, well, it can't be done. It would be less than 60,000 words. That's not really a publishable situation. But the beauty of self-publishing is I get to make that decision. And if I evaluate and I think it's done at 60, then it's done. So,
Rhonda, how close are you for your novel to be done? Because you're at 30. How about what size do you think your novel will be?
Well, let me interject something here. Okay. So I buy most of my novels that I read at Salvation Army, Goodwill, or whatever. Like Salvation Army I went to yesterday in Milford was like 10 for $1. So that was heaven. But anyway, I realized that, I realized that the novels that I go for the, you know, half-inch thick ones. I don't go for the large ones. And so I'm thinking that I'm just going to write like that. That's what I want to read. So that's what I'm going to write. So I think that by 60,000, I was thinking originally with this being a novella, I would keep it around 40,000 and I might still, but I keep finding more information I want to add. So it might end up around 60.
Okay. Do you think that we could have a little bit of a conversation about word count? Because I had some talk with Tina about this. And I know we're supposed to move on to like self-care or something, but can we expand upon this a little bit? Okay, because like,
that's
so
the beauty of the live episode, by the way. Whatever you want to do.
Right. Well, because, you know, I say that I write short, but when I've talked with Tina about it, I don't write short. Like I don't sit down and say, I am only going to write this story to be 10,000 words. Like that's not what I do. I write until the story is told. And sometimes the story is 10,000 words and sometimes the story is 5,000 words. And I tend to have trouble if I try to write to an assigned 1,000 words. Then it's like a challenge. But if I just write until the story is told and told well, I'm satisfied at sometimes 25,000 words. And that's why it's a novelette and not a full novel. Okay. But I do understand why traditional publishers, aside from the fact that, like Rhonda said, half-inch books weren't as easy to market once upon a time when they had to think about how they would look on a shelf or whatever. A lot of shorter novelette type stories or whatever are not fleshed out super well. The characters feel flat because you don't take the time to kind of like round them out and, you know, tell their like you don't get as rich of a picture. So I do kind of understand why traditional publishers would think 50,000 words, well, that can't be any good because they're going to feel like a lot of stuff was just kind of glossed over. And so I think it's really interesting to be a little critical about if your piece seems short for the traditional length, is it because you legitimately have run out of story and the story's over, or are you skimping on the stuff that makes things really delicious for a reader?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point to bring up. When I was outlining this story, I've put lots of subplots in there for my genre. I've put lots of characters and not just stick them in there, but you have to get to know them. And so that takes up space in a novel too. But even as I was doing it, it just felt natural to me because this is book 4. I've done this, this is the 4th time. And so you start to get a feel for what you fit in and what you don't, and how the character arcs can work. And, you know, both your main characters need to have character arcs in a romance, but then you can have character arcs for your other characters and you can have things happening outside that. So I agree with you. I think that the answer can only come from doing it. I think the answer only can come from continuing to write. Like I may finish a book and say, oh no, it's perfect like it is at 50,000 words. But then by the time I write my fourth book, I might be like, ooh, that first one, I really should have added more about this background character or whatever. And it's genre specific too, don't you guys think? Did I answer your question? You guys are looking at me confused. Okay.
No, not confused, just thinking, because a lot of it is the decisions of arbitrary gatekeepers who insist, well, this is what sells, but meanwhile, that's all that they market to anybody, so that's what sells. So you have to be your own. You have to, I think, first of all, read a lot, which I'm trying now to read more of the type of work that I want to submit as I'm going forward. So that you understand what you like in writing, so that you are putting out stuff that you like. And then you just have to sort of be honest when you evaluate your own work, I think. Because a traditional publisher or agent will tell you, well, blah, 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 blah won't sell. But how much marketing and money do they put into the stuff that they're telling you wouldn't sell?
Right.
So are these books where, like, I'm skipping pages and pages sometimes of like the blowing fields of wheat or whatever. Or like you said, Jen, this guy got shot with a Glock MR6914 and he, you know, I mean, like if you don't care about that stuff, you're skimming and skipping. And meanwhile, the publisher is saying, but this is what people are buying. So you have to include all that stuff in your novel. So it's really interesting to think about it as independent authors.
I agree completely.
Because when people pick up an indie book and it isn't like a trad pub book, you don't want it to not be like a trad pub book in the ways that really matter to a reader.
Yes. I think that not only do you need to be honest with yourself, but I think you also need to make sure that you are in a healthy writing group as well. Because that's something that comes with people that you've built a relationship with, is them to help you by being honest about your writing. Sometimes we can't see these kind of things in our own pieces, but someone else might, like telling you like, it's not realistic that all of a sudden they're kissing right now. Like they don't even like each other, but no, they've spent time together. They've grown together. You've not shown that. You see what I'm saying? Like in our minds, like, oh yeah, they're just so perfect together. But as a reader, it's not happening. So like, I think that it's really important to find a writing group. I know we harp on this, but I don't think we can say it enough. Finding a healthy writing group, being part of a healthy writing group is so, so important to your work. All righty. Let's move on to talk a little bit about self-help. It doesn't have to be a big conversation, but I just thought it was really interesting. What is this piece of hair here? Do you see this? I'm sorry. It was really driving me nuts. Sorry.
I thought that was like a cord from your headphones.
I know. That's what I thought too. I'm like, I don't have two cords. So we have been sitting and writing and sitting and eating unhealthy food and caffeinating a great deal this whole month. How do we come out of our nano comas? What are some suggestions? Anyone have any?
Don't get into one in the first place.
That's my.
I really didn't caffeinate and eat the unhealthy foods. I have been doing a lot of sitting though. And you just have to get up. You have to schedule times to get up, walk around, walk to the kitchen to get another glass of water or whatever. So that you're not completely sitting all the time.
Yeah. And I didn't sacrifice my morning walks for any writing.
Well, I'm the opposite. I have caffeinated more than any human should caffeinate. I think you
won.
Yes, I did. But I think I use Nano as an excuse to, as Tina knows, you all know, I've become recently addicted to Coke Zero cherry Coke Zero. I love it. And I know it's not healthy for me, but it's Nano. So I'm just going to drink it all month long and then I'll worry about getting rid of it in my life. Right. So yeah, so I've been very bad. I've also eaten lots and lots of sugar-free chocolates and like granola bar things that just not good for you. So, but my thing mostly, I think about the self-help thing for this is that like Rhonda said, you can't sacrifice your exercise routine, which I have. You have to make sure that you are being healthy and moving around, especially as writers. That's why I love sprinting. Now, we do a 25-minute sprint with a 5-minute break, and we're supposed to get up and move around those 5 minutes. I don't always do that because I'm usually busy chatting with you girls, but
I didn't know we were supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's part of if you Google search Pomodoro procedure, Pomodoro, I keep wanting to say effect, but that's not it. It will talk about the science behind getting up and moving after the 25 minutes. So that would be my advice. Make sure you're moving and make sure that
while
as you
we're
continue,
chatting, could we just like do like
nope, gotta stand up.
Chair dancing.
Isn't it something to do with like how the brain works, Jen?
Mhm.
Like it's like a neuron, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, all that sciencey schmincy kind of stuff. Yes.
When you
Agreed.
say
It's all that.
Pomodoro, I think of like an Italian dish with tomatoes and garlic.
That's where that's what it's based on, not the dish, but somebody, I guess, who started this had a timer that was shaped like a tomato. And Pomodoro is tomato, right, in Italian?
Oh.
No, it is to have to do with tomato, but it really is just about timing it. But you can still buy these timers that they make that look like a tomato, and you twist them, and it does the 25 minutes. And
Jennifer, are you sure that you're not
one of those
mom?
Am I sure? I didn't hear you. What?
You're not a homeschooling mom?
Why do you say that?
Because it's just like everything is a lesson if you're a homeschool mom. So
I am very much that person with my kids.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a former teacher, so people probably don't. You guys know that, but a lot of people probably don't know that. We use an app. I personally use an app with the ladies called Gym Flex. It is actually Gym Next Flex Timer, and it's free. And it's actually for the gym, but you can set up rounds. Like I can do a 25-minute with a 5-minute break, and I can say how many times I want to repeat that. So like if I'm going to sit down for an hour and a half, I can literally make it to where it times my breaks too, so I'm not like getting lazy. And so look that up. It's free. Yeah. So.
Well, I just would like to speak to this whole concept of, how do you reconnect to healthy or whatever, however we're phrasing this, good self-care or something. And it's funny because, again, I was not going to do NaNoWriMo this year. And arrogantly, I will confess, I've outgrown NaNoWriMo. Well, I think that the reason I felt that way is because it is sort of treated like a party or a holiday for people who come to NaNoWriMo and do it. Oh, we're going to, pile in all of the goodies and we're going to write. And I feel like, well, I'm writing every day, and I am writing. It doesn't have to be a holiday or a special occasion anymore for me to feel like I'm going to sit down and write today. And so I think that that's why in my turning up my nose at Nano, I was forgetting all of the benefits to engaging in this process and all of the help that it does do. It does not have to be, it's okay. So it's kind of like the fun part though. So why not have a whole month of like celebrating writing and having fun and having snacks and kind of all of that stuff. But I think that if you can channel that into good career habits or business habits coming out of it, it will help you to make good from all of that fun that you have in November. So next November, hooray! Now what I'm doing for a living is like celebrated and fun, right?
Yes.
So I think that you can have a marriage of both. I'm kind of schooling myself, like I'm the stuffy person who doesn't allow kids to bring cupcakes to the birthday party at school. Well, it's just another day. Why should we celebrate your birthday or kind of whatever? And I'm just kind of saying that I don't think you need to be wrong-minded about it in either direction.
I'm glad you brought that up again, because that is something that I personally question. Jamie mentioned that we have all kinds of listeners, and not all of them are career-minded. They are hobby writers, hobbyists. And I don't understand that. Please don't take offense to this. I'm not trying to be offensive, honestly. I honestly just want to know, why would a person only write once a year? Like, why would, if you enjoy it enough and that you want to do it as a hobby, why would you only segment it into Novembers? I think that that's a question I'm going to throw out on Twitter from the Christian indie writers and see if we get any responses from people, because I'm really and genuinely curious as to the thinking behind that. So
I think it feels selfish to people, just like any other hobby that people have, although most other hobbies. So let's say you're a knitter. You can bring your knitting to wherever and sit there and knit quietly in the corner without looking like you're totally an antisocial person. It's much harder with a book because then you're sticking your nose in a book and aren't engaging. And it's certainly way harder with writing because you do disappear into your world and your computer. And it feels too selfish to kind of try to include that in your life, especially if you're a married person or you have other people who expect you to be social. That's just what I sort of suspect is at the bottom of it for most people, because I never kind of wrote, I don't know, when I only wrote Nano once a year, it was to write the book, and then the book got put away. So it wasn't like writing as a hobby for me. Do you know what I mean? I just never really set my mind to making it a career. Mm-hmm. Tina, do you know? I mean, you would write during only November, but I think you're more like me. Maybe someday I'll be a writer.
Yeah, it was like the other things in life were all more important, and this was kind of something that I would do when I had the time. And of course, you make time for what's important, right? You prioritize your life, and if you haven't made something a priority, it gets pushed aside, and then, so. And you're right, it did feel kind of selfish. Like, I needed to make money to help with finances, and I had these children that, seem to want to eat 3 times a day.
For some crazy reason, like that.
I know. So it just gets off the list of priorities and gets pushed aside.
Yeah, that's it.
So again, self-care, right? Like if this is something you want and this is something that is important to you, you need to act like it's important so those around you will act like it's important. Because I think a lot of writers only write November because they feel like it's okay for them to tell their family, I'm going to be really busy this month and I'm going to be writing. Yeah. But they don't feel like they can tell their families all year long, this is my time to write and you need to protect this time to write. My husband and I just had this conversation recently actually about that, because I don't have a dedicated writing space. I don't have my own office. I can't close myself up, that we had to find a way to protect my writing time because it's important to me, as important as if I had, it is a job for me. And so it's about getting the mentality around it, not only for myself, but for the rest of my family, so they start to respect it as well and give me the time that I need to. So,
yeah.
Can I bring up a different part of it too?
Yes.
First of all, Jamie, I don't know what kind of knitter you are, but I'm extremely noisy. You would never invite me to knit in a corner quietly.
Hold on. What are you doing that is so loud?
My needle's clickety clacking and dropping stitches and yelling at my yarn when it gets all twisted up. And okay. Second of all,
coming on this one, I'm telling you right now.
Second of all, at Thanksgiving, when people around the country or the world are doing Nano, everybody knows what is involved in that. And this really came home to me at Thanksgiving. I was talking to my, he's my nephew. He's the newest outlaw in the family. And he is also a writer at heart. And right now he's busy student teaching and doing all that. So he's not doing a lot of writing, but we've shared our writing before. And I mentioned, so are you doing Nano this year? And he wasn't, but he instantly knew everything that was going on in my life this month. You know? So it's sort of a bonding thing, even if the person's not in your writing group.
It is. Our youth pastor messaged me the other day, and now again, he's my son's age. He's a friend of my son's. They've been friends I've known this kid since he was 2. So he's kind of a family member, but he messaged me and said, how's your Nano going? Aww. He's not a writer. So I told him how much I appreciated him asking. He's like, yeah, I know what's important to you. And I just want you to know I'm thinking of you.
Aww.
So like, you're right. It is a bonding thing for writers, for the people. So like Nano helps, I think, to legitimize what we're doing to other people too, which is so great, because before I found Nano, it was very hard for me even to tell other people that I was a writer because I wasn't published yet. And like anyone can say they're writers or whatever, but Nano helped me to say, I'm doing Nano this month, and that means I'm putting out 50,000 words, and then people are like, whoa, she's serious. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Does anybody else's husband have a nickname for it? Like John calls it NaNoWriMo Ding Dong. And he means it completely lovingly too.
John is a unique individual.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yes. That's fun. No, my husband is just used to me, it's a writing thing, He's a very much give me the details if it's relevant and I need to know, you know what I mean?
If it's going to affect my life, tell me. If not,
yeah. You're over there doing your little hustle and jive,
My husband's tried to call me twice while we've been recording, so like he's
mine too. Not twice, mine too.
Do you think it's possible we missed the rapture and they're trying to call and tell us? Like, otherwise, don't interrupt me while we're recording. Like,
I just texted I canceled it really quick and I just texted one word: podcasting. That's all I did. He sent back a thumbs up.
Well, and you know what, really, and here's a place where I'm kind of talking to myself, but do we give the people in our lives ammunition against legitimizing what we do? I mean, do we make promises and say we're going to do things and then don't do them? So if we're going to be published, let's get published this year before next year, NaNoWriMo. If we're on the journey to publication, we now know we can write 50,000 words or whatever in a month. So we're really sort of without excuse to have something put together and on the shelves published by this time next year, really. Because, I mean, if we're going to say this is a priority and not just in November, shouldn't we give the people around us a reason to believe that?
Yes. I think that is awesome. And I think that's something next week, we're going to be live again. It'll be our Thank God It's Over episode. And I think that is a great topic that we should focus a lot on, that in order to show that our family, like we want our family to respect our writing, well, then let's show them that they need to respect it by doing what we say we're going to do. Right. We'll talk about publishing. We'll talk about like, what do we do next? And that's good, Jamie. I love that. All right. I'm making a note right now. So, all right, that was a great episode, but we got to move on because we have our sharing time to do. Yeah. And I know that you ladies are super excited to share what you wrote today.
Oh, so excited.
In every episode of the Christian Indie Writers podcast, we share one of our writing pieces. Before we start podcasting, we have a writing prompt and we spend 15 minutes doing a writing sprint together. We don't know what the prompt is before we sit down. Sometimes it's a few words. Sometimes it's a sentence we have to include. Sometimes it's just a topic. Sometimes it's a game of some sort. This whole month, we've been using this list, our awesome MLs. Let me just do a shout out to our MLs on our they are awesome. They threw a great kickoff party. They gave us this folder filled with all kinds of stuff. But one of the things they gave us was a 30-word challenge, which every day was a challenge to fit the word of that day into your writing that day. I did not do that for my paper, except for when we did our writing challenge. So this month, before every episode, we would take the word that was supposed to be for that day, and then we had to include it into our writing. And our writing activities this month had to be from our project because we want to get the words in, right? The numbers in. So today's word was the word mom. That wasn't as difficult as some of these other words, like basketball was one of the words. But mom. So today we did that with our writing project and we're all so happy with what we wrote. Is there a volunteer that wants to go first? If not, I have no problem picking one of you.
I'll go first and get the Band-Aid ripped off.
All right.
That's my theory in life. Just rip it right off. Okay. Rory sat on the couch watching the fire flicker in the hearth. She had never noticed before that there were so many different colors of flames. There were white ones and the usual orange hue, and some of them, down near the accumulation of coals where it was mostly white, would flare up in blue. It really was beautiful, and the sound, like rushing water in a way, was soothing. The occasional pop of the logs added to the coziness it added to the room. Bella sat on the floor with her dolls, making them have little conversations with her. The dog lay nearby, and Bella was using him as a prop to lean her dolls against. He didn't seem to mind. Rory was always amazed with the cherub-like face of her daughter. It never ceased to cause her to wonder how something so beautiful had been created by her. Being a mom was by far the best thing that had ever happened to her and her one accomplishment in life. She wasn't sure what she would do or be without Bella. The thought made her think of Seth. Was he as upset as she would be at the loss of Bella? How determined would he be to find them? He had always doted on Bella from the day she was born. Rory had actually been kind of jealous. When Seth walked into the room, the first thing he noticed was his daughter, oohing and awing over her in a way he'd never done with Rory. After a while, he would give Rory a kiss before going on about whatever he was up to at that moment. She had felt forgotten, pushed aside. Part of her had resented the baby at first, but slowly, as the child grew, the bond between mom and daughter got stronger. The resentment she felt transferred back to where it belonged, with the man who wasn't in any way living up to the promise of the dream he'd presented to her when he'd asked her to move in with him. At least that was all behind her now. There was no way Seth would find her here, not unless Teresa talked, which Rory highly doubted would ever happen. Rory picked up her needlepoint and continued to push the needle through the tiny holes in the canvas, pretending it was the skin on Seth's face. She had deserved the Sorry. It made me laugh when I'm reading. She had deserved the dream, but once again she'd made the wrong choice. It was herself she should be angry with for being so easily duped. Mama, Bella said, looking up from her dolls. Yes, Bella, Rory replied. I miss my daddy. Rory gave her a restrained smile, trying hard not to let the pangs of jealousy affect her. I know, honey, but it's a girl's only adventure, remember? I'm tired of this adventure, the little girl said sadly. I want to go home now. Rory sighed. Eventually she would have to tell the little girl that they weren't ever going home, but not yet, not until more time had passed and feelings about what was normal had faded.
Very good.
Wow, really good. How many words is that, just out of curiosity?
520.
And did you finish with time to spare?
Yeah.
Did you go back in and like do edits and kind of whatever?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just totally curious. I really like that.
Tina, did you have
I love that this girl has no internet, so she's like noticing fire and doing needlepoint. Yes. And you're like, wow, the simple life can be very healthy for some people to finally realize the good things in life are in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Tina, did you have a big dog as your best friend when you were a kid?
I've always had a big dog, yeah, until the last one died a few years ago, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because just when you write her with the dog and just all the little things that aren't the focus of the story or the scene or whatever, I just love that part.
Thank you.
I do too. Like, first of all, I think this prompt was completely unfair because your story was all about the fact that she's a mom anyway. So totally unfair. But besides that, like, I love the doll conversation. Yeah. Like, just as a mom of girls, like, I just love it. And the voodoo doll part about it piercing his skin, probably my favorite part. Like, that is just hilarious. It's so funny. Somebody tweeted the other day, whoever has my voodoo doll, could you take some of the stuffing out of the stomach area, please? Thanks. I died laughing. Yes,
it was just so funny because it was like wholesome, cozy scene by the fireplace. Tapestry.
Yes, exactly. And for those who are new to our podcast, that is and who don't know Tina personally, that is so Tina. You know what I mean? Like, Tina's just so sweet. And then all of a sudden she's got a zinger that comes out when she's talking to you. And it's just like perfect. I loved it. So
good. The dolls leaned up against the dog and the dog just laying there. Like, who doesn't love that kind of a dog? It's just like, whatever, little child, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that meme where the dog is licking the baby? It's like, there, ugly bald puppy. It was very Dogs can be great.
That's awesome. All right, Rhonda, you're next on my screen. You feel like going next? I'm sorry. I waited till you were taking a drink because I'm like that. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, well, here comes my 250 words. All right. Mom, I called down the stairs. I heard the clattering of dishes in the sink and the sound of her voice moving closer to the stairs as she called, I'm here, Z. I pictured her wiping her hands dry on her apron. Would you help me? The sound of her footsteps speeding up the stairs told me she was on her way. Before that thought was complete, I saw her in my doorway. What do you need, honey? She was slightly breathless and putting a wisp of her bangs back in place. I took a second to take her in. I hardly ever look at my mother. Shame on me. In my mind, she's still a cushiony lap, a face ready to laugh at every joke, a hand with fingers to scratch my back, a woman wearing an apron delivering delicious food to the table. The children are so selfish. Here before me, my wise 20-year-old self stands a woman barely in her 40s, and full of life. I noticed the laugh lines around her eyes, the pearly pink fingernails, and without her ever-present apron, is it ever-present? Her waist is almost as small as mine. Suddenly, I'm not interested in talking about my silly problems. I want to hear about her. What was she like at my age? How did she meet my dad? What did her friends do for fun? I pat the bed next to me, and she eagerly took the seat. Are you okay, honey? She reached over, her arm stretched toward my forehead. I shook my head and took that concerned hand in mine. I'm fine, Mom, I smiled at her, studying more. That's it.
Ah,
That was so good.
yes.
My eyes are filled with tears.
Oh, let me see.
Oh, it's so nice.
I was gonna joke with you because you just used "mom" as the first sentence.
I did. For you.
But like it was such a sweet scene that like I can't even tease you. Like it just was so nice.
It is really nice. It's really good. The whole thing about that she was just this fingers to scratch my back, a lap for me to cuddle in.
Oh. I win.
Yeah.
Jimmy's crying. Aw, that's so sweet, Jamie. Thank you. I know.
Very good.
Thank you.
Although when you said, here's my 250 words, and you started with mom, I wondered if they were all mom. Mom. Mom.
Thank you for that idea. I'll use it next time.
Yeah.
Right.
It would have been a very realistic scene, but nobody would have wanted to read it.
And then the
It's
mom
too
goes,
much like real life.
yeah, nothing.
Really good.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Jamie, you or me? Who's going last?
I will go because I really wanted to go earlier because this is really such a nothing of a scene, but I want to also laugh because, yes, I was going to use the word this week, right, Jennifer? Not like last week. So it is the very first word. I was like, not going to forget this time.
Tina, did you know that last week Jamie and I both finished our writing exercise and realized that neither of us used the word, but we broke gold.
Well, what was hilarious about it is I realized before the timer went off, I forgot to use the word. Then I said it to Jennifer and she was like, the word! Like she had totally forgotten there was even a word to be considered. It was really funny. Okay, so here we go. Mom, look what I caught. The little boy's blonde cowlick bounced in rhythm to his hopping feet. He shoved his hand toward Melody's face and she recoiled reflexively. What is it? Brianna noted that while the woman's body telegraphed reluctance to investigate her son's recently acquired possession, her voice remained calm. It's a lizard. It's really neat. The boy brought his dirty fist to his face. Brianna could now see a lizard's tail hanging from the boy's fist. He brought his other hand up and began touching the lizard as he described it for his mother. It has yellow stripes and a brown body. See? The boy once again extended his hand in the direction of his mother. Brianna watched as this time the mother drew closer to her son and bent over a bit, inclining her head in the direction of her son. Oh, that's a lizard, all right, Melody said. I believe it's called an anole. Green anoles are native to our country, but that one appears to be a brown anole, which was brought here by the Spanish. The boy smiled, obviously satisfied with his mother's expressed interest in his find. He scampered off. Melody caught Brianna's eye and blushed. I really do not care for lizards, if I'm honest, she said. You sure convinced your boy otherwise, Brianna replied. Melody shrugged. I had 2 brothers. My mother would shriek or otherwise act out when they brought those sorts of things around. They got such a kick out of her reaction they made a game of it, trying to see who could terrify Mother more. Goodness, Brianna said. Melody nodded. I decided as a girl that if I ever had boys, I'd never let them know I was afraid of little slimy things or bugs or any of it. Seems to have worked out for you, Brianna said. Again, Melody nodded. It's good for the boys, too. Since I have to think of something to say that isn't a reaction of fear, I've trained myself to respond with any fact that comes to mind about the creature. She gave Brianna an impish smile, which ultimately benefits me, as nothing sends the boys running faster than turning something cool into a lesson. The 2 women laughed. Later that evening, Corinna brought her guitar to the meeting space and encouraged others to come gather up any of their own instruments. Come on now, she said. We could have ourselves a bit of a jam session. But I never played, a woman said. It was my husband who played. What did he play? Corinna asked. Did you bring his instrument with you? He played the fiddle. I brought it along. She looked down. It was a small enough thing to bring, and I guess it seemed to be the one thing I missed most about him. Several women expressed a similar sentiment. Go and get what you have, Corinna instructed, all of you, and I'll see what I can teach you. I had a year of viola lessons in school. I have my clarinet, another woman said. I could probably teach some wind instruments. 3, 2, 1.
Are you adding that in to your story?
It might stay, especially the part about the little boy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Go ahead, Rhonda. I got something to say about it.
I was just going to say, I just love the characterization of her as a mother. I think it's fantastic. I love it.
Oh, thanks.
She's obviously a homeschool mom.
Yes, obviously.
Okay, if that isn't the little boy, the lizard, the Melody talking about her mom, if that isn't an opportunity for you to set up character arc, I don't know what is. Because she specifically tells a story about how she doesn't react because she doesn't want her son to know her fear, because then he will act on it. And Brianna doesn't know how to act with this new situation. And I don't know how you're moving her arc or whatnot, but like you could possibly use that to show that, you know, she's scared, but she has to not act scared so that people don't use her fear against her. I don't know, but like
That's
there's
really
just
good.
so much deeper than what, like you wrote it, but I so good.
I totally in the connection, Jennifer. Good point.
Yeah. And another thing too is she doesn't want to be like her mother, so that could be an arc.
Yes. Well, just so you know, this Melody is a third string person. I don't even really know. Because, okay, so Brianna is my main character, and Melody is someone who came to live on the property after the whole world came crashing down. So I don't know how much, because Melody is around, but sort of a peripheral figure. I don't know.
Right.
But yes,
but Melody doesn't have to show up ever again. Her whole purpose for the story has just been done. Because now Brianna can think back to that conversation when she's standing up in front of them, scared to death, and trying to figure out if she's going to be honest or not. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, this is your story, but I'm saying she recalls that, and she's like, I'm not going to have them wave a lizard in my face.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
really good.
So yeah,
that does really help, because my main character has a lot of growing up to do really fast.
Yeah.
So really good. Thanks. That's a good connection.
Love it.
Thanks, ladies.
All right,
Jen.
So I wanted like 30 more seconds. So, but it is what it is. Okay. Miss Albright, are you a teacher? Well, I'm your music teacher, if that's what you mean. No, I mean like a real teacher, like the ones the kids with parents have. Sarah touched Larry on the head. No, I do not have a college education. Teachers in public school have degrees from universities. Then you're kind of like our mom. Don't be a knucklehead, Ronald said as he elbowed his friend. I'm no knucklehead, but she isn't a teacher, and she isn't paid to be here. She spends time with us and gives us hugs. That's like a mom, right? The room grew silent as all the boys turned questioning eyes towards Sarah. Well, a mother does do those things, but they do so much more. And just so you aren't misled, Larry, I do receive an income from Maxwell and Isaac's family. Well, you're the closest thing to mom I know of. Whatever those other things are that moms do don't matter to me. I ain't never had one. What about Mrs. Willoughby? Sammy asked. She's like our mom. She's too old to be our mom. Yeah, she's more like a grandma. Yeah, grandma, that's it. She can be our grandma. Miss Albright can be our mom. The excited chatter that broke out around the room told Sarah that the boys thought this would be a pretty good idea. There's only one problem, she interrupted. I'm not married. Wouldn't I need a husband to have children? Sammy smiled. Oh, we all know who that could be. Again, in unison, the boys began nodding their heads and smiling like the cat that got the canary. Sarah could feel her cheeks grow warm. There's another problem. Someday, if you are adopted, you'll have a real mom and you'll leave the orphanage. If I was your mom, you couldn't have another. Oh, that ain't never going to happen, Ronald said with a wave of his hand. It happened for Isaac and Maxwell. The boys grew silent as they contemplated that. You can't lose hope, Sarah said. If you lose hope that someday God will bring you a family of your own, then you'll never be ready if he does. But what if he doesn't? What if he never gives us parents of our own? then you'll have to be happy with the family he has given you. All these friends who are more like brothers, Reverend and Mrs. Willoughby, they're all your family. And you and me, she agreed. On their way out of the classroom, Larry leaned in and whispered, 3, 2, 1.
Oh,
You'll never
Larry,
know what he whispered.
why did
What
you
a
whisper
strange
that?
thing. What a strange thing for a kid to whisper.
In
At
such a
least
low
he knows
voice.
how to count backwards.
Right in the heart. Jennifer, I almost feel like that could be its own book, the story of these kids in this orphanage. Like, they're real to me in what, 500 words, whatever that was. Like,
yeah, 432.
And
you know
also, you know how I am reading the historical and wondering, are you educating me? Or so then I wonder more, like orphanages, because my friend and I have talked about this. So, the foster care experience, when you talk to adults who've been through it, is really not a good one for many, many people. And we kind of wonder whatever happened to like orphanages, because I mean, it seems to me people think prisoners have it pretty good. Like, so, I mean, I just wonder, like, could we do orphanages today in a way that would feel better to children who are in foster care? I just don't even know. Whatever. I mean, this is the whole conversation. I know only this much about it, but to think about how it used to be orphanages is a whole wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in my research, it looks like I found one in particular that I'm kind of like making this one like, and it seems to me like it was a decent place, but again, we're looking at the pictures that they're showing, and we're looking at it from the outside. Who knows what really happened within? But I want this to be a fairly positive place. But the chances of these boys in this time period of grown, like, not babies, but boys getting adopted would have been pretty slim, and so most boys that were in this home in particular that I've been studying would have gone to adulthood, and they had reunions just like you would for a high school. Like, they would come back and there'd be dinners and reunions and whatnot. But the whole point was that they this was their life. This is how they were raised, and this would be the only family that they would know.
Yeah.
So
Although some boys were adopted to work on farms.
I know,
like Anne of Green Gables, she was supposed to be a boy.
Yes. Yep. Same time period. That's the same.
Okay. So I just want to say
a little bit earlier, maybe like a decade earlier than this particular book.
I've gotten us way off track by talking about that. It was very good writing.
Thank you.
It was very.
Is that going to be part of your story?
It wasn't like when I only have 425 words because I sat here going, I didn't know what to do. So I'm like, I'll just write this. And I started writing it. But I'm really glad what Jamie said, that like she can feel these boys and start to because I haven't written much, I don't think, that really makes you know the boys in the orphanage. And you also, I feel like you get to see a little bit of Sarah too in this, in ways that I haven't shown her. So
but
I'll try and find a way of fitting it.
In 20 years, Ronald's going to need his own romance story. Well, I grew up in the orphanage and I was taken care of by these wonderful people and blah, blah, blah. So like, what happens to him when he grows up?
Yeah.
Wow, that could be really. Anyway, yeah, I love those little orphanage kids, and I love how they all see her with, they all know who the boyfriend would be. Very cute, just adorable kids. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was awesome. I always love reading you guys' stuff, especially the postcast stuff. So we are getting ready to wrap up this podcast, but don't forget there's plenty more after this, because we have our postcast, which is every week we submit to each other a fully edited piece for critique from each other, like we do in a regular writing group. During Nano, it's a little different. During Nano, we're taking a piece that is unedited from something we wrote this last week. So that's even more exciting, actually. So if you want to be part of the fun, go over to patreon.com and support us for as little as $2. You can be joining our podcast and watching us do all the fun stuff that we do afterwards.
Right, because here when you watch the podcast, we're all just so very positive, and you might be wondering, well, they didn't talk at all about how she used the word present twice within 2 sentences. Well, if you want to see how we really encourage through critique, that postcast is the place to be to see that kind of feedback.
Right. Well, another great episode, ladies. Thanks for joining us today. And this concludes the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. So until next week, may your pen be prolific May your deadlines be met, especially your nano deadline. And may all of your words honor Christ.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.